Greetings and welcome back to another Unbiased Magic review. Today I'm taking a look at Sumology by David Jonathan and Nikolas Mavresis. So for $20 you can pick up this instant download where you're going to get about an hour and a half of video instruction and you're going to learn 3 routines. You're also going to get a couple of extra files which are going to help you out with these routines. So I saw a couple of positive reviews about this, so that's why I decided to pick this up and give it a whirl. As usual, I'm going to give you guys a good idea of what this is, try to answer those questions you guys have about this, and give you my rating about this download. Finally, I'll also give you a couple of other recommendations as we go. So what is Sumology? This is 3 prediction type effects with cards that are semi-self-working, meaning they're not completely self-working. Let's go through the 3 effects, and I'm going to give you my thoughts along the way. So the first effect is called Awesum, and it's going to feel like an open prediction type effect. You take out a deck of cards, you shuffle them in front of the spectator, you can show them that they're all different. You have the spectator cut the cards, and you tell them you want them to make a couple of choices. You show them that one card has an odd back, which that's the prediction. You're going to put that aside. You have them choose red or black, and then you have them cut off a group of cards, and you tell them that you're going to start dealing cards face up from where they cut. And if they chose red, the first 3 red cards you come to, you're going to add those up to come up with a total. Or if they chose black, the same thing with black cards. Why 3? I don't know. That's just part of the procedure. So then you deal out the cards, you add up the first 3 red cards or first 3 black cards, and they deal down to that number from the cards that they cut off. And the card they come to is going to match your prediction. That is the effect, basically. Nothing new here. This is based on age-old principles. If you are wondering and thinking full deck stack, then you would be right. There is a full deck stack involved. There's some other principles involved too that are as old as the hills. So the creators here, they've added some extra convincers, which plus or minus, you may like that or you may not. You have to be able to do a rudimentary pharaoh shuffle in the beginning. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can even do it without it if you want to. You may like this effect if you like that kind of effect. Of course, there is a full deck stack in place, so it is not impromptu at all. At the end of this review, I'm going to give you my own recommendation of an effect that will feel exactly the same, but completely impromptu from a brand new deck. So stay tuned for that. So the next effect is called Strange Dice, and this is actually a recycled effect because David Jonathan put this out on another project he did with PenguinMagic. I think that was called Mental Mysteries. And this effect is basically a small variation of an effect that Howard Adams published in his book, Oh, I See You Have ESP. Now, Howard Adams, he's put out a bunch of different books on ESP magic. I actually have a couple of them, including his book 666 Mentalism. I have it somewhere around here. In his original effect, it was called Strangers. This was a coincidence ESP type effect. Now what David Jonathan did was he adapted it to dice. So basically you're going to have to make up a 30 card deck. So you take 30 blank cards, you have to draw dice on them. And it does involve a full deck stack as well. In David Jonathan's version, you take out an envelope and you put it aside as a prediction. You have the cards shuffled. Of course, you have to shuffle them yourself. You can't hand them out to be shuffled. The spectator is going to cut the cards somewhere, and you're going to deal 3 cards face up from wherever they cut to. You then deal out the rest of the cards, and then miraculously the top card of each pile or the bottom card of each pile matches the 3 cards that are already face up from where the spectator had cut to. Now that was the original coincidence type effect, and what David Jonathan has added here is now you can add up the value of the dice, and that total value is predicted in the envelope. Unfortunately, the envelope is gimmicked, so you cannot let the spectator handle that, which is again why I say this is semi-self-working. It does seem a little bit procedure heavy. The props are a little weird. They're not normal, and you have to come up with them yourself. So that's the second effect. And then the third effect is called feeling lucky. And this effect is another prediction effect. You take out a little sheet of paper that has some prizes on it. You tell the spectator that these are potential prizes that they could win. You take out a deck of cards and you tell them that you're going to play a game with them. You shuffle the cards, you let the spectator cut them, and you deal 3 cards to your spectator, 3 to you. And basically you're going to have them choose one of their cards, you choose one of yours. Whoever has the highest card wins. You do that 3 times, and whoever ends up having more wins. You add up those 3 cards of the winner, and you look at what prize falls on that number, and you can prove that you've predicted that ahead of time. Now this does involve, again, a full deck stack, and unfortunately you have to mark the cards, and if you don't want to mark the cards, then you have to remember a sequence of cards. So again, it's not self-working, but it's pretty close to it overall, especially if you've marked your cards. But again, it does use an extensive setup, and there is that procedure, so it's a little bit long-winded. Some people may not like that. You do have to carry around extra props like that list of prizes, all for this effect. So those are the 3 effects you can expect here. In terms of what are the real positives, the positives are you will get good reactions, especially from lay people, and they are relatively easy to perform. I'd say that those are the real positives. In terms of the negatives are that 1, it's very procedure heavy. 2, that you're using extensive setups like a full deck stack. They're not really practical at all. And then the other thing is that, you do have to use some gimmicks too, like gimmicked envelope, marked cards. So for some people that will be definitely a big negative. The other negative that I'm going to tell you guys is that there's much better routines that exist out there that use similar principles or use the exact same principle for that matter. So let's go over my rating, and then I'm just going to give you guys some of my recommendations. So for originality, I gave this 2 out of 5 for this project because there's nothing really new here. The principles at play here are as old as the hills, and if you look into the magic literature, you'll find tons of routines that are very similar, that don't use such an extensive setup, and that don't use so many props or gimmicks, so to speak. So originality, I gave it 2 out of 5, and I actually thought that was kind of generous. Creativity, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I primarily gave it 3.5 out of 5 because I thought it was creative that they did come up with this stack themselves, as well as David Jonathan's creativity of applying the ESP effect to dice. That in itself was also creative and different. It was creative that Feeling Lucky has that type of gambling type presentation to it. That was creative too. So I gave it 3.5 out of 5. The teaching I gave 3 out of 5 because it was very long-winded. You really don't need an hour and a half of video instruction to learn these 3 routines. I felt that they repeated themselves a lot, and unfortunately there were some errors. Like the first effect, Awesum, near the end of the explanation, David Jonathan's like, well, actually, I've switched around some of the cards in the stack. I found a better stack, which I'm including as a PDF file. So there's some confusion there. It seems sloppy. They could have cleaned that up. They could have made a new instructional video and just edited that out, but they didn't. So that's unfortunate. So for the teaching, I just give it 3 out of 5. Practicality, I rated that as 1 out of 5, and the main reason is because none of these effects are practical at all. All of these effects require a full deck stack. They're going to require you to carry around extra props with you, so they're not really practical. Audience reactions, I rated that 4 out of 5, and the main reason is because I've got really good reactions myself when I perform these. The only negative reaction I got from it was when somebody wanted to look at the envelope that had the prediction in it, unfortunately. So I give it 4 out of 5. That's almost the highest rating for audience reaction. And then finally, price. I rated the price as 3 out of 5. Again, I thought that was generous because keep in mind, they're recycling one of the routines here. So I thought it was really overpriced for what you're getting. For $20, I mean, for $25, you could pick up Howard Adams' book, Oh, I See You Have ESP, and you'll get tons more routines in there. So I thought it was overpriced. Again, I was being generous. I gave it 3 out of 5 for price. The final score is 2.75, which means that I would recommend you don't buy this. I think that you might be disappointed. You'll find that a lot of these routines are not practical. They're not things that you're going to use for very long. I think you might use it a handful of times and then that'll be the end of it. You'll forget about it. That'll be that, because they're not very practical effects overall. Now, in terms of my own recommendations that I told you guys I would recommend, one routine that I've done countless times, and this comes from a Paul Swinford book. You probably have the book because I bought several magic lots on eBay, and I've got the same book more than once as part of the magic lot, and it was called More Pharaoh Fantasies. I think that's what it was called. And in that book, there is a routine that is called Swinford Myth. And that is the basic Smith myth effect for 2 people. But the reason why I use it so much is because I do it with just one person. And the way that I perform it is as follows. You have the spectator bring you a new deck. You tell them, I'll do some magic for you on Friday night, just so you know that, that this is up and up. Bring your deck, get a new deck of cards and bring them. So your spectator brings a new deck, they open and give it to you. And from a new deck, you shuffle the cards, and you tell the spectator to just cut the cards anywhere they want to, and wherever they cut to, they're going to add the number of the card they cut to with the next card. They add those 2 cards together and they have a number in their mind. You don't know what that is. You take the cards back and you give them a couple more shuffles. Then you tell the spectator to deal down to whatever number they're thinking of and look at that card that's at their number. They can shuffle all the cards, and then you have a lot of freedom there. You can present this as a prediction to show that you've predicted the card that they counted down to. Or if you want, you could just do like a real mind reading in that moment. You can start reading their mind and tell them what card they're merely thinking of. What I really like about the effect is it's very easy to perform. It's very quick. And because you're using a brand new deck, there's not going to be any kind of suspicion on the deck, because you can have the spectator bring you a new deck, and right from a new deck you can go right into this, which is great. So it's utterly practical, and it's exactly the same type of effect as what these effects are on this project, because it uses the exact same principle. It uses the exact same principle, and you're probably wondering, well, how do you get into a stack where you're going to be able to do this? Well, that's the beauty of it. And so that's why I recommend you take a look at the Paul Swinford book. In fact, there's a ton of other great routines in the book. The actual routine, as I said, it is actually performed for 2 people, and 2 people make selections, and then what ends up happening is you deal through the cards and they both end up at their same selection at the same time, which is like the typical Smith myth type routine. But the way that I've done it, I enjoy doing it more for just one person and just having them come up with that number. And because of the way it works out, you're always going to be able to know the card that they're going to deal down to. You'll be able to easily discern what that is, or even you'll be able to predict it. So that's why I recommend it to you guys. And it goes to show you that there are really hidden gems in old books. So that's pretty much all I wanted to tell you guys about this download, and I hope that my review has helped you guys out. I'll see you on the next review.